All right. Good morning, everyone. It's the top of the hour, so we can go ahead and get started today. For those of you that are new here, welcome. And for those of you that are coming back, welcome back. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started today. One, I'm Kaylee Hansen, and joined with me today is Austin and Julia from my team as well. So we'll kind of be assisting through the webinar today. As we go through today's session, please feel free to ask questions. There's a chat feature. We'll be monitoring those chats as we go through, and then we'll also have a designated Q&A session at the end. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. So today's webinar is essentially beyond the basics. We're going to be revisiting essentially 20 features that essentially every Acumatica user should be leveraging. So these may be ones that you guys are using already, but if not, kind of rapid fire going through what these will look like and some areas that can kind of make your lives easier from an Acumatica perspective. In terms of the agenda today, we'll start in a slide deck. We'll just take a look at kind of an overview of what we'll be talking through as well, and then we'll get into Acumatica. We'll go through them pretty quickly, but kind of touching on all of those kind of top 20 features that we'll cover today as well. A couple of slides before we get started, why we're kind of bringing this up now. Again, some of you have probably seen these already. Some of you might be working through these on a day-to-day basis. But essentially, these types of features help you kind of find what you need to get faster. So how can you move between different screens, records, and documents with essentially less search? They can help you save time. So as you're in your day-to-day operations, how can you use things like automation, shortcuts, and different types of patterns that can make that entry process a little bit easier. They help improve things like visibility without additional effort. So how can you keep, attachments, files, approvals, all of those types of things working together pretty quickly without the need, again, to kind of scrounge around to find what you're looking for. And then essentially you can have quick wins throughout the day. And, we all know everyone's busy. So simple wins throughout the day ultimately end up making the full day a lot more seamless and a little bit quicker from just the day-to-day operations standpoint. We won't look through all of these or dive too deep into all of these in the deck, but we'll see these in action. So where we'll start to visit is essentially from a general navigation standpoint. How can we navigate around Acumatica from a general sense, find the screens that we're looking for, things that we've recently visited, all of those types of things pretty quickly. Then we'll get into the record and transaction overview. So whether that's, a master data record like a vendor or a customer or a transaction, different types of tools that live within each of those within Acumatica that can make your lives a little bit easier as well. Then we'll get into the entry side. So what are quick kind of shortcuts for data entry? How can you make that process easier as we have more transactions and we're working kind of heavily within the system? How can we make, again, that a quicker process so that you guys can kind of do what's more important instead of focusing all of your time and energy on things like data entry? We'll get into things like the notifications, the approvals as well. So we've dove deeper into those in previous sessions, but we'll kind of re-highlight some of those features. And then we'll end with some of the ad hoc reporting kind of tips and tricks as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into Acumatica. So I'll share my screen here. And I trust that you guys can see this okay. Perfect. So I'll start with the general navigation and then the record and transaction overview features, and then I'll hand it over to Julia for some of those other ones that we saw as well. So from a general navigation standpoint, you guys are probably used to working within Acumatica, navigating to the areas that are most important to you, perhaps working through things like dashboard views to get that data that's important to you as well. So a couple of things that I'll just highlight. Again, might be a review for some folks, but if you're not leveraging these today, it can certainly make your lives a little bit easier. But within our workspaces, we have some features that are personal features. So what I'm going to do today is not going to affect essentially other users in the system. So I can start to view my menu structure a little bit differently, perhaps, than how Julia views it. That might make more sense just depending on the screens that I work with on a more frequent basis. So on our left-hand side, we'll have our modules. If I just use my payables module as an example, this is where I have visibility into things like a short menu. So maybe there's 5 or 6 menu options that I work with more frequently within the payables workspace specifically. I might want those in my short menu. So as I pop into that, that's the first thing that I'm seeing right away. So I could go ahead, pop into those, and then I also have a concept of my long menu. And that's where I could see, everything that I have available to me within this payables workspace as my user. From just kind of a tips and tricks standpoint, this little icon at the top here, that's going to be the ability to configure what's in my short menu versus my long menu. So all users should be able to access this essentially configuration component. And this would allow me to check and uncheck different components that live within my essentially quick menu. So if I just uncheck some of those, exit out, now you'll see that those will drop off of my quick menu view. So again, just trimming to get to the data or the transactions or the profiles or menu options, for example, that are more relevant to me on a day-to-day basis. To take that a step further as well, there's also a concept of favorites. So you'll see that my bills and adjustments, for example, as well as my vendor record are favorited. So that means they will show up at my top. Again, this could be across different modules as well, but for some of my core modules, what are the 2 or 3 main things that I'm working on more frequently that I might want to favorite at the top? So pretty basic, but again, if you're not leveraging those tools today, that can just help you get to kind of where you want a little bit quicker as well. The next one from a general navigation standpoint is this universal search. So you obviously saw me navigating through my menu structure. I can also navigate 2 different menus or profiles through my universal search function. So anytime I have anything that I'm looking for, I don't exactly know what module it lives in, for example, I could just go ahead and search it. So maybe financial allocations I set up less frequently. Anything I search within that universal search, I can find on a quick menu view. And then another one, kind of to take it a step further, could be if I want to search through transactions and profiles. Maybe I have a customer that I'm looking for. I don't need to go to the customer inquiry filter or search there. I could search that directly within my universal search. And this is where I'll see things like those records that match. Come and find that within my universal search as well. So you can see Solo Salons is pulling automatically that customer record that meets that naming criteria. But then I can also see any recent transactions from them as well. So you'll see I had a support case, a shipment, a sales order, all of those types of things I can find pretty quickly through this universal search under my transactions and profiles. And another one could be if someone called me, I could go ahead, put in just that phone number. So I'll put in this phone number here. If I search that, now you'll see it's finding this contact under that company that has that phone number associated with them as well. So pretty quick in terms of, do I want to search for things like vendor reference numbers, sales order, shipment numbers, AP bills, emails, phone numbers, all of those types of things can get pretty granular in just getting to those specific transactions or profiles that you need based off of whatever criteria you have to search from as well. I'll stay within this. One more kind of search here. There's also this help topics. So for example, if we wanted to set up a new user or a new user type and we didn't exactly remember how to do that, we have pretty robust help documentation built out. So we can start perhaps typing into the universal search, what it is that we want to do. Do we want to set up users? Do we want to set up an allocation rule? Do we want to set up an approval map, for example? And that will essentially do a Google-like search, I'll call it, through Acumatica's help documentation. And now I can see things like, general information on that. Is there an activity of how would I add a user account, for example? So different types of how-to activities, step-by-step kind of instructions and walkthrough as well that will live within this help documentation. So those of you that are used to Acumatica, again, you may have been leveraging this already, but it is often a good kind of first stop shop in terms of how do I do something in the system? Maybe it's pretty straightforward, but I forgot how to do that. This help documentation can kind of take that a step further and assist you guys in that process. I'll kind of go into a specific page here as well. For example, if I was going ahead and creating an AP bill, any page within Acumatica, you can also click this little help question mark, and it's going to trim essentially all of the activities and the reference forms within Acumatica's help documentation specific to that screen that you're on. So in this case, if I'm on a bills and adjustments screen, the first thing here is going to be a process activity with a video alongside of it of how to create an AP bill in Acumatica. Same thing if I go down, we can see, how might that change for a debit or credit adjustment. So this is, again, a nifty tool in terms of getting used to Acumatica or playing with any other pages or areas that maybe you're not as used to just give you a starting point of how to do something within the system. So that's our help documentation. And then last one I'll highlight in kind of our rapid fire of these features related to the general navigation is my recently visited. So this little icon at the top here, this is going to show me anything that I was recently on within Acumatica. So think, hey, we were working on a specific document, we got pulled away to do something, came back, I forgot exactly which AP bill, for example, I was working on. This will give us the full history of everywhere we were in the system. So I could see, that AP bill that I was just on. If I want to drill down further into that, I certainly could. But that shows up within my recently visited components. And then you could also favorite any of these. So maybe, you're tracking a vendor purchase order, for example. You want to make sure that that comes on time. You could go ahead and favorite those, and that will show up on our favorite records within that recently visited as well. So just a way to kind of navigate to where you were last within the system, again, without having to drill down through our menu structure, perhaps filtering on different criteria to meet what you need there. All right, and then the last component that I'll kind of transition into, and then I'll pass it over to Julia, is related to some kind of quick features on the record components. So for this, I'm actually going to pop open into my customer record. So the first thing, again, you may be leveraging this on different screens within Acumatica, but it is available essentially across the system. So any transaction or profile in Acumatica could have one or many file attachments associated with them, as well as notes and activities. To start with the file attachments, I'll just pop open into this files icon at the top. Here you'll see that there's no files yet. It's not lit up. We don't have any files for this particular customer. But what I could do is go ahead and add this in pretty quickly. So for example, if I want to add in something like a credit verification form, I can drill down to see what that looks like as well. But I could just associate that with this particular customer here. And then there is also, as of the recent release of Acumatica, a document tagging system. So this is where I could set different types of document tags within Acumatica, and then on a file by file basis, essentially associate with those tags, essentially those folders as well. So maybe for this one, I want to associate this with, a CRM document or a contract, whatever the case may be. I can go ahead, tag that as such, and then I can filter by that tag or view this particular document based off of that tagging criteria as well. So that's the files component. And then the next one's going to be my notes. So any notes that I want to essentially add to a particular record, I could. In this case, this particular customer is one of our newest influencers. Maybe this is more for a B2C type of customer, but I could go ahead and add any type of note here as well. And with this, if we wanted to take this kind of one step further, I could also add something and mark it as a pop-up note. And so what a pop-up note would do in Acumatica is, for example, for this customer, if I mark this as a pop-up note and put a note underneath for what exactly should pop up, anytime that customer is called on a transaction, this pop-up note would pop up. So whether I'm drilling down into my customer, I could see that note. Maybe it's just a reminder for folks. For example, on the vendor side, maybe you have a pop-up note for different types of things as well. And then for this customer, if I entered, for example, a sales order or an invoice, that pop-up note would also just essentially serve as a reminder for any detail related to this particular customer that folks should keep in mind when entering in transactions specific to them as well. All right, and then the next one here is also our activities. So depending on kind of how you have Acumatica set up, certain types of transactions and records may have the activities at the top as well, or they could have them down below. So this is where I could go ahead and track any sort of activities. Ones that are automatically sent out of Acumatica would show up here as well. Otherwise, they're going to be able to kind of go ahead and create one here too. So you could add things like notes or messages or tasks, all of those types of things within the particular transaction or profile again, and then all of those activities that automatically get sent out through the system would track here too. So Julia will start to show that as we get into kind of the entry side of things as well. All right, and then lastly here, what I'll show is there is auditing capabilities within Acumatica. So many of you might be leveraging that today. Whether or not you have auditing turned on, one kind of feature that we also like to highlight that sometimes customers forget about or aren't aware is there is the concept of tracking, always tracking who created something and when, as well as who last modified it and when. So on any of these screens, whether it's a customer record, a vendor record, an AP bill, an invoice, for example, any of these inquiries, you can have a concept of who created it. So this created by filter, created on. So when was this last created? Maybe I just want to look at customers that were created, this week or this year, those types of things. And then I can also see when it was last modified and who modified it. So for this particular customer at the top, you'll see that this was created by our admin account back in 2024, but it was last modified by me on, in August, for example. So that's one way that you can kind of start to see some of the history within certain transactions and profiles without needing to kind of fully turn on all of the auditing depending on your particular use case as well. All right, and then the last one from just a record and transaction overview of kind of some quick tips that we like to call out is the concept of related document navigation. So I have this set up for my particular sales order here, but within a sales order, obviously there's going to be related types of documents and profiles as well. So I'll have things like a customer as related. That's more of a drill down into, the customer record. Again, anything in Acumatica that's blue hyperlinked is a hyperlink that you can drill down into to that particular profile. But to take a little bit deeper dive into those related documents, things like our sales orders or our purchase orders, for example, are some good examples here. So on my sales order, most likely we'll have something like a shipment and an invoice associated with those. So you can pretty much always find those related documents somewhere within our records. So for example, on my sales order specifically for the shipments tab, I'll have visibility into those related documents. So here's my shipment. I could drill down further into those. Here's my invoice number, so the AR invoice that was created, my inventory reference number. So as that inventory issue was created, it created that record and tracked that on my sales order as well. So all of those essentially related documents are here, and I could drill down further from, the originating one or one of the related ones as well. So I can drill down, for example, into my shipment. I could drill down into my AR invoice, all of those types of things. And let me just pop open into this in a better example here. And we can go ahead and view those details. So one that's completed would likely be the one that has things like my shipments and my invoices. So anywhere here, I could go ahead, drill down and pop open, in this example, into this related shipment. And then you'll see as I'm in my shipment, I'll have drill down back into my order. So all of those can kind of work in tandem depending on the wherever you originate from. You can kind of find all of those details that are related to them through those related document tags as well. All right, so kind of a high-level, fast-paced overview of some of those quick features from a navigation standpoint, as well as a transaction and record standpoint. Again, all of those are available kind of throughout the system. So if you're not leveraging those today, those can just make your guys' lives a little bit easier, a little bit quicker in terms of navigating around Acumatica. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Julia, and she's going to get a little bit more into the entry side, and then we'll get deeper into the automation and reporting side after that as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Kaylee. I'll go ahead and share. All right, you should be able to see Acumatica now. Oh.
Yes.
So I'm on my built-in adjustments screen here. And what we're gonna talk about now, as Kaylee showed you just an overview of the record transaction. Now we're going to get into the entry, how we can automate a couple processes here and make our life easier. So in this case, I will just start with one of the features and that could help you. So if you have a, let's say this is in this case an AP bill, but could be also an AR or other things like sales orders. So in this case, I might be using this vendor a lot. Also, the amounts might not change or only change slightly. What I can do here is if it's not regularly enough to be set on a recurring transactions, I have the ability, if I click on this little clipboard here, to copy basically this entry. And then when I go ahead and create a new AP bill, I would be able to paste it just from the record that you guys saw. And the nice thing about this is now it's still in that hold status, so I would be able to still adjust the period if this is, let's say, a similar bill for October, or I could also change the amount if it slightly change it, or if you have way more line items than I do here, then maybe only one line item changed, and you would be able to still edit all of the fields that you can see here by doing this. And if it's maybe, if you think this is helpful, if you would save it, you would also be able to go ahead and save it as a template. You could call it vendor invoice to, um, let's say, lakefront snacks. You would be able to add a description here and then edit that template. So then every time I would be, if I'm needing to enter a bill for them, I would be able to copy it if it's similar or the same. The next thing we will talk about is importing from Excel. So what you can still do, you can either, like we said, there are a couple AP automation features, but let's say if you have your line items in an Excel spreadsheet, you would still be able to upload from, oh, I just downloaded it, upload from Excel. So if I click on this, I would be able to just edit this here. Now what this is going to do is it's going to map my Excel spreadsheet fields to my Acumatica ones. And then once that is processing, I should be able to see all the line items now here edit from my spreadsheet instead, if that is something you would do. So you always have the ability to upload from Excel. And as you already saw, what I excellently did is export to Excel. All right. Next, what we can also do on my record and transactions is, don't have to save this right now, is the concept of mass updates. So in this case, I would be able for my AP bills, let's say I had sent a couple bills for approval, they all got approved. I would be able to mass release them by just selecting them. And then here, if I click on these three dots, I could, for example, mass release them and then would save myself some time and less clicking into records if needed. All right, from here, we're going to shift it a little and go into the how can we collaborate more in Acumatica, approvals and the automated workflows. So for that one, I will drill into my receivables, and as an example, I'm going to pull up a customer record. So in this case, I will go into my active staffing, and Kaylee already touched a little bit on it, but here on this activity tab, I could start adding notes. Either in this case, I added a note that I call the customer just to log all the activities that we have and interactions with this customer. So helpful if someone else is then working on an issue or just something on that invoice, we would be able to see that fully. What I can also do is create tasks. So instead of just having notes, I could create a task and let's say call active staffing service tomorrow as an example. And I could even, if I have the right permissions, assign it to someone. I can add a detailed description here if needed. I could also add, once I'm working on it, how much percent of it I have completed of it, sorry. etc. So just a couple things that I would be able to do here to just set that up in the system. If I would assign that task to someone else, I would be able to set up a feature. Let's say if I set it up for Kaylee, that she would get an email, a push notification, depending on how we have it set up, that she would know that I just assigned her a task for that customers, and then she would be able to view that in the system too. The other thing you can do here, and you might have already seen this, is create emails. So I could go ahead and email this customer right from my Acumatica. I don't have to leave to go into my emails. I could email them right from here. I could also CC Kaylee if I wanted to, or I could also select the template instead if I wanted to. So if I click here, I could send them an automated email. Maybe it's about the invoice that's due. So if look on that, I could just, for example, edit something that we've set up here that you would be able to set up in your Acumatica instances. Let's say you're emailing error invoice due tomorrow. So just a couple of things, how to be quicker. So you would have that already set up and could be starting to work with that. All right. On that note, on the collaboration, getting more into the approvals now, what you can do is setting up delegates. What that is, so if I'm going into my profile here, I would be able to go into this delegate step. And basically what that will do is, let's say I am actually an AP approver, and I'm having a scheduled vacation, as you can see here at the end of the month until September 2nd. I would be able to set up Kaylee as my delegate. So what that will do is all the bills that are normally routed to me for approval can then be routed to Kaylee. So there wouldn't be any holdup from me being out of the office. None of these bills are just hanging in there. You would be able to keep everything moving and avoid these bottlenecks of out of the office not being able to approve them. All right. So speaking of approval, another beneficial feature of Acumatica is also that free mobile app. Being able to approve bills while you're maybe not in the office or just on the go and still be able to get it an appropriate review in here. I will show that next, actually going into my mobile app. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and I'll go ahead and share on my phone. Okay. All right. Should be able to see my screen now. I'm gonna just push you guys to the side here, and I'm logging into my Acumatica instance. In this case, I'm using my face recognition, but I could have also logged in just normally with my user and password. So as you can see here again, a couple of things on the mobile app would be able to see my KPIs, what I've recently viewed. I can have the concept of favorites and my workspaces that I normally work in, depending on your role and access rights. So in this case, I'm always in approvals. That's why I've favorized. So now I'm going in here and would be able to review builds. Have a couple ones that I do have to approve here. I will just drill down in one of them just to show you how that would look like. All right, here I can view that bill that someone submitted. I can click on here, add notes if I wanted to. I can view the line details here, etc. What I can also do is if I click on this little clip here, I would be able to even drill down into my PDF to review that. If that looks all good to me, I would be able from here on to approve that bill then and route it for the next steps. So just to see the mobile app being able to do this on the go, even if you're out of office or on your lunch break, you would still be able to receive a notification that someone just routed a bill for approval for you, and you would be able to log in and review all the details needed to decide to route it for approval or reject it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing from my phone again and we'll go back into my desktop instance. So a little bit of a role play here. So, um, desktop 2. Okay. Awesome. Okay. The last thing on notifications, approval, and automation workflows will be the scheduled processing. So for that, we're gonna go back into my payables screen. So if I click on one of my process screens here, let's say my prepare payments, what I will be able to do here is if I just select payment method to see all the payments that are outstanding that I could be doing. Every time you have this little icon on these processing screens, you would be able to schedule that. So in this case, I would be able to either schedule all of them for processing. I can also have exception rules of like certain vendors I don't want to automatically process and they need another human review to do that. But here's basically where I can start setting up these schedules for all of my processing screens in Acumatica, essentially. All right. Next, we're gonna go into the ad hoc reporting. So on that, we will just go quickly back into my builds and adjustments for 1 second. And you might already notice, but this might also be a nice help on how you can start looking at the data quicker you need to see. I could start filtering and saving these filters. So for example, here, maybe I don't need to see all of my AP bills no matter the status. Maybe I only need to see the on holds, balanced, schedules, and open, for example. I could start filtering by that. I could also start filtering by amounts. Maybe I am only dealing with the bills that are higher than 5,000. I'll be able to filter by that, as you already know. I'm still able to drag and drop depending on what do I need to see first here. And then I would be able to save filters if needed. So I could name this and then I could either share it if I have the permission to share filters with other people. If I think Kaylee would also benefit from that filter for quick access, I could share with her. Or I could also and I could set it as my default. So every time I'm viewing my builds and adjustments, this is the configuration I will see to be able to have less distraction and only work with what I need to see. All right. That was just a little bit on the records and how you can start filtering here. Now we'll get into the last feature that we'll show today, which is the anomaly detections on generic inquiries. So I go back onto my AP Clerk dashboard. I have one set up for potential anomalies. So I'm going to drill in here. Once it loads, I will be able to, oh, now I open it 3 times. Okay, in this example, you will see it in a second once my screen load. In this example, you will see AP bills. So this anomaly detection is set up, so you might already have set up an approval workflow, so you might be able to catch any mistakes, errors already in that approval flow. So this anomaly detection might just add an additional layer of security, making just sure if it wasn't caught in the approval workflow, it might be caught here on this filtered inquiry. So essentially, it's looking at my settings. In this case, I have it set up by unit cost and existing unit cost. So it's looking at different components within the AP bill, and it's going to start to flag any anomalies where it's based off historical data between those items. So in this case, it's by unit cost, the vendors, etc. So anything that's worth flagging that's abnormal. In this case, I also have it set up to filter by severity. So as you can see, this pinkish color is medium, and then there's red is really severe. and it can flag these. So in this case, if I'm looking at this one that's red, there's a really high discrepancy between the two that I have. Maybe I accidentally just added a number here, and that's the mistake I did. Or in other cases, if I have an anomaly that's maybe not that high, if I'm just looking at one of them, let's say here, and it's just like, oh, we ordered less this time and we got a heavy discount for some reason. It would be things like that. Then you would be able then to have one human review, and if I scroll down here, you would be able to see, okay, the comments that I already have for some of the abnormalities that we flagged, and I would be able to enter them here and then take them off this anomaly and say we reviewed it, this is correct. So just a little extra layer of security, how we can start helping our team to be able to catch any abnormalities, any mistakes beyond the approval workflow. All right. With that, I'll stop sharing here and hand it back over to Kaylee.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. I will go ahead and reshare our slide deck. So we went through 20 features. I think it was maybe 22, but don't tell anyone. Features that we kind of went through in terms of how to make your lives a little bit easier. One thing I'll note that we don't always do with these webinars is as you guys get an email out with just a link to the webinar recording, we'll also be attaching a resource there, which will go through essentially all of those features we walked through, a brief description of just what it does, and then an example use case of where that could start to come into play, perhaps for your guys's workflows specifically. So just be on the lookout for that. That can be a good resource for you guys internally, whether you've been on Acumatica for a while and just need a reminder of some of those kind of tips and tricks, or maybe you have new employees joining, you want them to kind of be up to speed, have kind of that cheat sheet as well. We'll be sending that as a resource so that you guys have that as well. So with that, I don't believe we had any questions in the chat, but if you have any kind of last minute questions, feel free to drop those in the chat and we can go ahead and address those now. In the meantime, a couple of things. One, if you're liking what you saw there, interested in more content like this or any more ideas, certainly reach out to us. You'll see some of those contacts, emails listed on this page as well. Stay connected with us. So we have some Acumatica blogs that are coming out. Those will be posted on things like LinkedIn, on our website as well. So you have visibility into some of those different blogs, some of those components, all things kind of Acumatica related. Our next webinar is going to be in September. So you can kind of save the date for Wednesday, September 23rd. That's going to be at 11 a.m. Central Time as well. We'll be sending out kind of an invite with the topic and all of that information to come. So be on the lookout for that. And then just a reminder, all of our webinars are posted on our website as well as YouTube. So you can find all of those posted there. We can dive deeper into, some of those areas. We have ones on notifications, on business events, approvals, some deeper dive components of what we walked through today. So definitely feel free to check that out. And then also we always like to drop that community link. So there's a lot of ideas floating around within the Acumatica community, how other Acumatica users are leveraging the tool, any ideas that they have for future releases. So definitely check that out, join those discussions, see what other folks are doing within the space as well. I don't think we had any lasting chats or questions. So with that, thank you guys for your time today, and be out on the lookout for kind of that resource to come as well. Thank you.